Rukmini Dwarkadish, Rukmini Dwarkadish, Rukmini Dwarkadish. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Gauranitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premanandi Hayaribo, Jayom Vishnupad, Paramahansa, Parivrajak Acharya, Asasarasata Sri Shiman, ISKCON BBT Founder, Acharya Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnupad, Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Nama Acharya, Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sakaho, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu, Nityananda, Shri Advaita, Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopanath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Gira Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Brajamubindam Dam Ki Jai. Shri Namarit Mayapur Dam Ki Jai. Shri Nilachal Jagannath Puri Dam Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. The most beautiful Lordship. Shri Shrukmini Dwarkadish Ki Jai. Shri Shrukmini Dwarkanath Ki Jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Going Back to Home, Back to Godhead Ki Jai, ISKCON Los Angeles Yatra Ki Jai, Brihad Mridanga Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, International Food for Life Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Haribo. All glories to the Assembly devotees, all glories to the Assembly devotees, all glories to the Assembly devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Gaur Srila Prabhupada. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Deving Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our means of conquest, let us offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God and Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, who is the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly attending the Srimad Bhagavatam class and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, whose worship with transcendental songs becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we're continuing our reading in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 19. Today's text is 13. Rajo Vacha Aho Vayam Danyatama Nripanam Mahattamanu Graniya Shilaha Ragyam Kulam Brahmana Pada Shauchad Durad Visrishtam Bhatta Karya Karma Rajavacha Aho Vayang Danyataman Ripanam Mahattamanu Grahaniya Shilaha Ragyang Kulang Brahmana Padashochad Durad Visrishtang Bhattagarhya Karma Rajavacha Aho Vayang Danyataman Ripanam Mahattamanu Grahaniya Shilaha Ragyang Kulang Brahmana Padashochad Durad Visrishtang Bhattagarhya Karma Rajovacha Aho Vayang Danyataman Ripanam Mahattamanu Grahaniya Shilaha Ragyang Kulang Brahmana Padashochad Durad Visrishtang Bhattagarhya Karma. Please chant. Rajavacha Aho Vayang Danyataman Ripanam Mahattamanu Grahaniya Shilaha Ragyang Kulang Brahmana Padashochad Durad Visrishtang Bhattagarhya Karma. Okay, Vaishnavis. Rajavacha Vayang Danyataman Ripanam Mahattamanu Grahaniya Shilaha Ragyang Kulang Brahmana Padashochan Durad Visrishtang Bhattagarhya Okay, synonyms. Raja Uvacha. The fortunate king said, Aho, ah, Vayam, we, Danya Tamaha, most thankful, Nripanam, of all the kings, Mahat Tama, of the great souls, Anugraniya Shilaha, trained to get favors, Ragyam, of the royal, Kulam, orders, Brahmanapada, feet of the Brahmanas, Shauchat, refuse after cleaning, Durat, at a distance, Visrishtam, always left out, Bhatta, on account of, Garhya, condemnable, Karma, activities. Srila Prabhupada's translation for this verse. The fortunate king said, indeed, we are the most grateful of all the kings who are trained to get favors from the great souls. Generally, you, sages, consider royalty as refuse to be rejected and left in a distant place. Please repeat. The fortunate king said, indeed, we are the most grateful of all the kings who are trained to get favors from the great souls. Generally, you, sages, consider royalty as refuse to be rejected and left in a distant place. Srila Prabhupada's purport. According to religious principles, stool, urine, wash water, and so on, must be left at a long distance. Attached bathrooms, urinals, and so on may be very convenient amenities of modern civilization, but they are ordered to be situated at a distance from residential quarters. That very example is cited herein in relation to the kingly order for those who are progressively marching back to Godhead. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that to be in intimate touch with dollars and cents men, or the kingly order, is worse than suicide for one who desires to go back to Godhead. In other words, the transcendentalists do not generally associate with men who are too enamored by the external beauty of God's creation. By advanced knowledge and spiritual realization, the transcendentalist knows that this beautiful material world is nothing but a shadowy reflection of the reality, the kingdom of God. They are not, therefore, very much captivated by royal opulence or anything like that. But in the case of Maharaj Parikshit, the situation was different. Apparently the king was condemned to death by an inexperienced Brahmana boy. But factually, he was called by the Lord to return to him. Other transcendentalists, the great sages and mystics who assembled together because of Maharaj Parikshit's fasting unto death, were quite anxious to see him, for he was going back to Godhead. Maharaj Parikshit also could understand that the great sages who assembled there were all kind to his forefathers, the Pandavas, because of their devotional service to the Lord. He therefore felt grateful to the sages for being present there at the last stage of his life, and he felt that it was all due to the greatness of his late forefathers or grandfathers. He felt proud, therefore, that he happened to be the descendant of such great devotees. Such pride for the devotees of the Lord is certainly not equal to the puffed up sense of vanity for material prosperity. The first is reality, whereas the other is false and vain. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachalesh Tarne Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtang Stapitang Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Bandehang Shri Guru Shri Tapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishavangsha Shri Rupam Sagaratam Sahagana Raghunatham Vatam Tang Sajivam Shadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vatang Sha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bando Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosate Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Pancha Kalpatarubhya Shah Kripa Sindhuva Evacha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So fortune or misfortune is in the eye of the beholder. Most of us living in this community, we do leave once in a while. We drive down Venice Boulevard and you get to the block between Sepulveda and Sawtell. Under the overpass of the 405, we have a tent city, they call it. Persons who are so-called homeless, but they have been given or somehow or other they have received tents that they're living in. But from the point of view of the 6 Goswamis, they're very fortunate. The 6 Goswamis were living under a different tree every other night. They didn't set up any tents anywhere. We don't see that in the Bhagavatam that they had a tent. No tent. They had loincloth, few personal possessions, and they were living under a different tree every other night. So these people are fortunate. They're living in tent under an overpass. That means they don't get wet when it rains. So fortune or misfortune is in the eye of the beholder. Here, this verse starts out by saying, the fortunate king. Most people think, fortunate? Are you kidding me? He's been cursed to die in 7 days? That's the height of misfortune. Still a young person. He's not like 100 and something years old and, let him go. Okay, all right, let him die. No. Still very young and vigorous. In other words, can still enjoy life. So you see that as a misfortune. Oh, how unfortunate. Alas, I've been cursed to die in 7 days. Just like Maharaja Yati. He was cursed to die, or at least to give up his youth, and he was horror-struck. Not even to die. He was just cursed to give up his youth because of his, it's a long story, but most of you know the story. But he saw that as the greatest misfortune. I have to give up my youth and become an old man instantly. How am I going to enjoy life? So, the story, he went to his sons and asked them to give their youth, and they all refused except for one. So fortune or misfortune is in the eye of the beholder. Would we consider ourselves fortunate if we were in the position of Parikshit? Still in our relative youth. I mean, most of us are going on in years, but, from the perspective of people from the prior age, this 60 years is nothing. 80, 100 years is nothing. Bhishma Dev was way, way older than that when he left his body. Previous ages, they were living up to 1,000 years. So to be 60 is a youth. You're just starting out life. What to speak of the age before that, 10,000 years, and the age before that, 100,000 years. So again, fortune or misfortune is in the eye of the beholder. So Parikshit, he considers himself to be fortunate. Rajovacha, he's speaking. It's not that somebody is saying that he thought himself to be fortunate. No, Rajovacha, the fortunate king is speaking. He considers himself fortunate because he has attained now the association of all these great sages. And he's saying that we know, the royal we, Prabhupada used to speak like that sometimes. We have come here. Somebody may think, what do you mean we? You're one person. But Prabhupada saw himself always in terms of his connection to the Sampradaya, his connection to Krishna. So he was never alone. It's not I and me. It's we. Because he was always with his spiritual master, always with Krishna. So the king is saying here, we know that you great sages, you consider the kingly order to be like refuse, something to be rejected. So one may think, what kind of sage is that? The sage is supposed to have equal vision. Vidyavanaya sampane, brahmane gavihasani, sunichaiva sapakecha, pandita samadarshana. Those who are actually pandit, those who are actually great, souls, they're supposed to see everybody equally. So why would they see the royal order as refuse to be left? And Prabhupada gives a list here of things that should be left far away. Stool, urine, wash water should be left far away, which is a shock to the modern way of living. You finally get enough millions of dollars to make your big house in Bel Air or Brentwood, and you have your master bathroom. Not just a regular bathroom. You have a master bathroom. And in that master bathroom, you still have a toilet sitting there. Now I noticed, though, since growing up, back in the 50s, 60s, they would have the toilet just in the open with everything else. But nowadays, the master bathrooms, they put the toilet actually in a little room with a door. So maybe they met enough Indians who were looking down their nose at them. Now they're a little bit progressed. But actually, in real Vedic culture, the bathroom, the place where you pass your obnoxious, should be far away from the residential quarters, as Prabhupada says. So the lifestyle today, even for the rich and powerful, is not very clean, which is not surprising because cleanliness has two parts. There's external cleanliness and there's internal cleanliness. If you're internally clean, meaning you're God conscious, then even if externally you seem to be unclean, you're actually clean. We say that every time we have a fire yoga. Om apavitra pravitra sarvasa gatopya yaksmared pundari kaksham. If you remember the lotus-eyed Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead, then no matter what your circumstances are, externally, you are clean, internally and externally. Whereas those who make a show of cleanliness, they go to their master bathroom and take bath, for half an hour or whatever, and put on fancy clothes. Because they're not clean internally, they're considered to be unclean, unfit to be associated with. So this is the case for the ordinary worldly so-called kings. They dress pompously and have entourage and fancy vehicles, either palanquin or nowadays some Rolls Royce or something, bulletproof car. But it's not Maya-proof. You may have a bulletproof car, but it's not Maya-proof. Maya can touch you wherever you go. No matter how much money you have and how much education you have, if you're not Krishna conscious, then you're not Maya-proof. So, because they're not clean internally, they're not Maya-proof. The king, however, is Maya-proof. He's already advanced, already Krishna conscious, but now that he's gotten notice that it's time to go, everything is left. No attachment. He's given it all up in an instant. It's not so easy to do. It may seem when you're reading, oh yeah, I could do that, but it's not so easy to do. To just walk away from family. The same family members that you fought with your whole life, couldn't get along with. Like I know in my family, we are nice to each other because we live far away. One sister is in one state, my other sister is here, but she lives an hour's drive away, and parents are gone. And it's like that my whole life. My whole family's like that, not just the immediate family. Everybody's like that. Very pleasant on the phone, but you don't want to be in the same room too long. You stay in one state, I stay in another state, and we can say, hi, how are you, like that. The same family members that you couldn't get along with while you were alive, when it's time to die, they all flash through your mind and you think, oh, my cousin so-and-so, and my father, and my this, and my that. Not so easy to give up material attachment. Dehapatya kalachadishu, atmasaineshu asatsu api. These are the fallible soldiers that we cling to. The son, the wife, the business, everything thinking it's mine. Janasya mahoyam ahang mameti. It's not your business. It's not your wife. It's not your son. They all belong to Krishna. They all belong to Krishna. All these sages are manifestations of Krishna's energy, and the king knows this. They've come in from all over the universe, which right away somebody, okay, you guys believe in mythology, okay, forget it. What do you mean they came in from all over the universe? Not possible. How did they get here? How did they get here? According to modern science, light travels in 1 year 5.88 trillion miles, rounded off to 6 trillion miles. And the nearest star, Alpha Centauri, is 4.22 light years away, which just means it's about 25 trillion miles away, according to their calculation. So how's somebody going to travel 25 trillion miles? Prabhupada even mentions in one purport in the second canto that according to the calculation of the modern scientists, it would take 40,000 years to get to the topmost planet in the universe. How are they going to do that? But we know, we accept as a fact, that these sages come from, we accept Narad Muni goes outside the universe and comes back. Not just outside the universe, because when you go outside of our universe, you're still within the Mahatattva. The causal ocean is there, and all the different universes, innumerable universes are floating. And then there's a covering over that, and then beyond that is the spiritual world. So you can just imagine that this distance is involved. We know again from the Bhagavatam that the interior portion, the open space of the universe, is covered by 7 layers, and each layer is 10 times thicker than the other. So by the time you get to the outside of one universe, the interior portion seems like insignificant. Narad Muni can go through all of that, and through the Mahatattva into the spiritual world, have a conversation with Mahavishnu, or Lord Vishnu, Lord Narayan, come back and tell you what happened. And just imagine the distances. They say mythology. Mythology. You people believe in mythology. But there are some scientists, the ancient astronaut theorists, who believe that, in fact, the Earth has been visited many times by beings from other planets within the universe. And it continues to happen even up to today. Sruti Prabhu interacts with such ancient astronaut theorists on a regular basis. And he informs them about the Vedas of ancient India and what they have to say. And he's described, you can see if you look it up on YouTube, he's had many, many meetings with these people, and he describes about, for instance, Shalva's spaceship that could appear and disappear and rain down weapons. So perhaps these people, because the modern ancient astronaut theorists, they refer to cultures around the world who 5,000 years ago had depictions of people that look like spacemen and like that. So perhaps these people were experiencing not people from other planets necessarily, but people like Shalva from this planet who could fly around in spaceships. And we know even Ravana, millions and millions of years ago, had a spacecraft that could appear and disappear. But wherever it is, wherever they came from, actually, again, these modern theoreticians, because they just like to speculate. They don't like to hear the truth. But their own discoveries kind of force them into the truth. Like I said, Jutakarma is always reminding them about Krishna and Shalva and these things that happened 5,000 years ago. They think, oh, it's just Hindu mythology. But then, when they discover by their modern instruments a sunken city, Dwarka, off the coast of Gujarat, they think, wow, maybe this mythology was actually true. But then, if they accept that Dwarka actually existed, then they have to accept that the Lord of Dwarka, Dwarkadish, actually existed. Then it forces them to, But they don't surrender so easily. They see the knowledge as what they accept or believe. I take something from here, yeah, that sounds plausible, I take something from there. But we don't have that luxury. We accept the Vedic canon in toto. Whatever is stated in the Vedas, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Vedas and its corollaries, the Itihasas, we accept. Therefore, we don't waste our time wondering, how did these great sages get from this planet to the... How did they find out? How did they know that he was going to leave his body, and how did they get here? We just accept. It's stated. This king was about to leave his body, he sat down to fast, and these sages and their disciples came from all over the universe and came and sat down. And it's stated in today's purport, why did they come? They knew he was going back to Godhead, and they wanted to be there to see that happen. We're lucky if when we're going to die, 1 or 2 devotees show up to chant Hare Krishna. Don't expect that the great sages are going to come from Tapaloka, Maharloka, Brahmaloka. But even one person chanting Hare Krishna in your ear at the time of death, that's the greatest fortune. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We have had experience right here in this community. So many devotees leaving their bodies. Jayananda Prabhu. uh, and so many others. Vidura. And so many others have left in this. Your father was still left here, right? Yeah. Yeah. Mother Duisa. So many devotees have left right here in this community. So that's we can hope for. We can hope that Krishna is so kind that we don't die in some car crash on the 405, that we actually are allowed to leave our body here in this community and have the association of the great souls who live here chanting in our ears at the end. But the point is we have to be internally ready by being internally clean. How do we remain clean internally? By hearing the Shastra always, hearing and chanting Hare Krishna. Purifying our desires. We cannot eliminate desires. We cannot stop desiring. Desiring is part of the soul. The soul always is desiring, constantly. Want this, want that, want that. But we can purify our desires. Instead of wanting for me all the time. I was just reading one purport. Prabhupada said there was this great atheist, non-believer in India, guy. His idea, very rich, was that, forget this, religion and all that. Open hospitals. That will benefit people. So Prabhupada said, 6 months after opening a hospital, he died. So he couldn't save himself with his own money. He's proud of opening hospitals to save people and cure people, but he couldn't cure himself. Couldn't save himself. So we're not so foolish. We take to the spiritual hospital. And Prabhupada said all of these temples in ISKCON, they're spiritual hospitals. Places where people can come and be cured of the material disease. Bhavaroga, birth, death, old age, disease. These things can be cured permanently by taking to the path of Krishna consciousness. So in other ages, the path was more difficult, but in this age it's been made so easy. Just chant Hare Krishna. Just accept a prasadam lollipop. I just posted a picture of Srimad Mahotsav. We were down on Venice Beach doing Harinam. And he was handing out prasadam lollipops. So there was one guy, I don't know if you remember him, he was holding an umbrella, sitting on a fence, and you reached up and gave him. So I got a picture of that. So just by accepting a prasadam lollipop, Prabhupada said they're so dull in this age, it's no question of teaching them philosophy, mostly, practically. Just give them prasadam. He said, you're so dull, just come here and eat and you'll go back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So this was Prabhupada's vision. We must have, just like yesterday, such nice prasadam. I was taking tickets for a few hours and I would ask people as they were leaving, what did you think? Oh, everybody was just raving. The devotees were raving. The non-devotees, some that come regularly, some for the first time, they were all raving. Wonderful prasadam, wonderful, love it. So that's how we attract people, by distributing tons and tons of wonderful prasadam to the public, and then gradually they become pure enough to start inquiring seriously about philosophy. One morning walk here I've mentioned several times that it always stood out in my mind, where one devotee was saying, Prabhupada, when we preach and we tell them about the principle, Prabhupada slammed his cane and he stopped and he said, why are you surprised? You're preaching to cats and dogs. Make them fortunate. Give them prasadam. Give them this chanting. So this is the preaching. And of course, if you can get them immediately to take a book, that's wonderful. Their money is employed in Krishna service and the book will be there. One day they will open it. So many stories you all know of books that have sat on shelves for decades, and then somebody in the family takes it down, reads it, and OMG, oh my Govinda, they take to Krishna consciousness. So let us just continue to follow Srila Prabhupada's lead, distribute his books, distribute the chanting of the holy name, distribute prasadam, and save Los Angeles. Okay, we'll stop here. Any questions, comments? Okay, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki.
I went back to Berkeley, and I decided to join in January, and then in March I was initiated. So that was the next time I was able to see Srila Prabhupada at the same temple in La Cienega. That was 1970 in March, and the initiation was very interesting. What happened was there were a number of devotees being initiated. The devotee on my right, who was initiated as Paramatma, used to smoke cigarettes. The devotee on my left, who was initiated as Babrubahan, used to take a lot of LSD. So when it came time for them to recite the 4 regulative principles, they would recite them, and then Paramatma on my right, Prabhupada, after he recited the regulative principles, Prabhupada went like this. And he said, "What about smoking?" And he said, "Oh no, Prabhupada." So then I recited the regulative principles. Prabhupada gave me my name. He said, "Mahatma is one who's always chanting the glories of the Lord." He didn't say anything else. Then it came time for Babrubahan. He recited the 4 regulative principles, and Prabhupada said, "What about LSD?" And he of course said, "Oh no, Prabhupada." So it's funny, they don't remember that. I distinctly remember that to this day. I don't know if the temple presidents told Prabhupada that they had those habits, or if Prabhupada knew it. Generally we assume that he just knew. But I thought that was amazing that he made those remarks. And he was kind of laughing and smiling and pretending like he was smoking.
And he said that, "What's your name?" I said, "Prabhupada, my name is Yogendra Kumar Sharma." He said, "From today onward, you're no more Yogendra Kumar Sharma. From today onward, you're Nav Yogendra Das." Practically in first meeting, he gave me the initiation. So I was very happy. So I felt very happy. I said, "Prabhupada, when I was young and I had my horoscope done, and in my horoscope it is mentioned that I am very fortunate. If I'll go to the material world, then I will make a lot of money, but I'm not going to go to the material world. And my luck is very good, I'm very fortunate." Prabhupada paused for some time, and then he looked at me, said, "That's why you have come to me. You're fortunate, that's why you have come to me." It's true that I have come to Prabhupada. It is my good fortune.
I remember as we were walking through from that part where he got off the plane to the exit of the airport, we were walking, and Prabhupada stopped to tell Sri Govinda, who at the time had his tilak all the way back. It was just all the way back like this, and he stopped. He said, "This is not a racing stripe. This is tilak. It stops at the forehead." So that was the first instruction that I knew for sure how to put tilak on, And as we were walking, it was very great that somehow or another it was arranged so that I could be right there in the very front as Prabhupada was coming and watching him dancing in front of him. And I could see the direction he was heading for. He was heading to a door that was an entrance door. It didn't, like if he stepped on the carpet there, it wasn't going to open. It was for the entrance. So I could see that was the case. So I ran ahead and pulled the door open for him. And when Prabhupada walked by, he said, "Thank you," And here I am, Bhakta Butterfly, and I'm just like, God, it was like the greatest thing in the world. He actually said something to me, And then everybody else all staunch and all, of course, very fixed up, everybody, those days. And then that was it until we got back to the temple. And that was also my initiation time, also the very next day. And the Radha Damodar bus was there, so there was a lot of devotees being initiated that day. And prior to this date, about a month before the publication of what was that book? The Nectar of Instruction, come out, and the announcement of the Radha Kunda had now for the first time reached the world. No, it was just in the last month that people had actually heard of the Radha Kunda. So as the devotees were being initiated and being called up to get their beads, there was a lot of errors. There was a lot of devotees, like when they would, pay directly their obeisances to Srila Prabhupada straight ahead, their rear ends would be at Kishore Kishore. And Prabhupada would try to tell them to move, but they were so you know, this is the Lord himself in this wonderful form of Srila Prabhupada, you know. This was the flavor we were all tasting. As far as I was concerned, it was how I felt, you know. And they'd reach with their left hand to get their beads, and sometimes one devotee, I remember, he said, so what are the principles? And he said, well, don't eat after dark, or something like this, you know. Everyone was so nervous and so ecstatically discombobulated. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to present themselves. So I'm watching, you know, pay obeisances to the side, you know, and reach with my right hand, the 4 regular principles, 16 rounds. Okay, I've got this, you know, I'm going to do this right, you know. So I'm walking, and then when I'm called up, you know, and I'm walking, and I'm 4 regular principles, 16 rounds, you know, the right side, right hand, you know, and I'm making sure I remember all these things, you know. So when I walk up there, I was so intent to say these things to Srila Prabhupada that Prabhupada picked that up. And he knew that I was anxious to tell him everything. And so he sat there looking at me, and I'm sitting there waiting for him to ask me. And he's sitting there waiting for me to tell him. And I'm sitting there waiting for him to ask me. Finally he smiled and he kind of a little chuckle, you know. He says, so what are the regulated principles, you know. And I mentioned to him them, and then the 16 rounds. And he took my beads from the microphone stand. He's looking at me for a minute. Then first, there's always been the smile. From the very beginning, he had this little grin. Then he gets real sober for a minute, and he goes, your name is Radha Kunda, like this with his eyes, you know. The whole room, it was like 4th of July or something. Ooh, ah, jai, whoa, you know, it was like this, you know, 500 devotees going off, you know, because we just heard about it. So that was my very first actual association with His Divine Grace.
So we were sitting there next to the cooker. At that point, we had just two, those gas Indian burners had 2 flames in the gas bottle, and we would make a bucket of coal fire to do his chapatis, because they would come out better on that. Sat down, had the tiffin with all the spices and all the vegetables. Prabhupada sat down. In the meantime, he just kept casually talking to Bhagaji in Hindi. And so I had the tiffin, he put the spice in, this spice in, that spice in, and this vegetable in, this vegetable in. And he turned, he looked at Bhagaji and he said, so simple, still they cannot do. And then we just sat there and he was chatting with Bhagaji. And so as he was chatting, Palika was concerned that it was too hot. So she would turn the burner down and he would, you know, chat, and he'd look and probably turn it back up. Didn't say anything, and chat. And then 3 minutes went by and Palika would turn it down again. And this happened 3 times. And he turned it down. He goes, Hari Baba, why are you messing? So, you know, we kind of just stood back. And then he looked at Bhagaji and he said, these 2 burners, he said, I can make, he said, in 45 minutes, I can make full prasad for 100 people. Bhagaji looked and said, impossible. And Prabhupada said, I will bet you. And Bhagaji said, yeah, khichdi. And Prabhupada said, no, full prasad in 45 minutes. And they started speaking in Hindi then again. And Bhagaji said, impossible. And Prabhupada said, I will bet you 1 lakh of rupees. And Bhagaji started to laugh, and he said, Prabhupada, if I win or lose, you will take it anyway. It said, he started to laugh, and then he just stood up without another word and said, it's finished. And then he walked out, and the kind of energy just went right back with him, right out the door. So that was my first time, him coming into the kitchen and cutting up and speaking.
So on this particular morning walk, Prabhupada was walking, and generally Paramahansa, Swami at the time, and Sruti Kirti or Amoga Prabhu would play the devil's advocate and pose materialistic questions to the philosophy that Srila Prabhupada was presenting, or inquiries. So I was becoming a little more familiar with Srila Prabhupada at this time, and I felt familiar in the sense that I felt comfortable, that I felt that I could also ask a question and I wouldn't get, you know, a bolt of lightning wouldn't come down and kill me for asking a question. So, Prabhupada was talking about Bhagavad Gita, and different devotees had asked questions. So I asked Prabhupada a question. I said I was trying to myself imitate a materialist. And I said, but if you say that the Bhagavad Gita is 5,000 years old, then what does it mean? And Prabhupada immediately again stopped me in mid-sentence. And Prabhupada turned to me and said, he is my disciple, he does not know Bhagavad Gita. And then he turned to the other devotees and looked at them. And so I didn't know what to say. I couldn't even get my question out. No one knew where Prabhupada was coming from. And then one of the devotees tried to half come to my defense. I think it was a Mogu, and he said, well, Prabhupada, I think he was pretending to be a materialist, and Prabhupada stopped him in the mid-sentence. He said, that is all right. He is my disciple. He does not know Bhagavad Gita. What is the meaning of this? And he looked at them all, and he kept on going, and I wanted to disappear. I wanted to melt. I couldn't understand why Prabhupada was chastising me, and he was so heavy. And he kept on saying, he is my disciple. He does not know Bhagavad Gita. And then Prabhupada began to explain, and he talked, and we walked further on. But I don't know what else happened on that walk. I was just blown away. I wanted to disappear. I just didn't want to be there anymore. Prabhupada's anger was so vehement. And it was basically, I guess, the first time that I had actually experienced Prabhupada's anger personally. Later on, I realized, and Prabhupada had been explaining, that if I was a materialist and I had picked up the Bhagavad Gita and I had been reading through it, then I should have known that Krishna, right there in the Bhagavad Gita, says that he spoke this science to the sun god many millions of years ago. So right there in that chapter, Krishna is explaining that this knowledge is actually eternal and it was spoken many millions of years ago. So as a materialist, it was a stupid, stupid question. How could I say that it was 5,000 years old? I must have read that somewhere, but if I had read that, then I should have read also that it was millions of years old. And from the devotional point of view, of course, I should have known that the knowledge was eternal, and it was a silly question. So there was no escape for me, and obviously Prabhupada was correct. He is my disciple, he does not know Bhagavad Gita. So I took it to heart later on to learn Bhagavad Gita. And to try and get the knowledge of Krishna consciousness down. Actually, Prabhupada wrote me a nice letter a number of months later saying that I had actually understood the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, so I felt somewhat relieved at that time. But that was an incredible experience to feel Prabhupada's anger right then and there on you. Just blew me away.
The nice thing about being temple president in the early days is we were supposed to write Prabhupada a letter every month. We were supposed to tell him what was going on in our center, and then I could take advantage and ask questions. So one time we were doing traveling Sankirtan, and I was enjoying traveling and preaching. I didn't like to manage, so when I came back to the temple, I was experiencing all this anxiety. So I began thinking that on the road, I can remember Krishna. But when I'm at the temple, I just forget him. There's so many things to do. So I decided when I would give my report to Srila Prabhupada that I would ask a question. So I was thinking like this. I was thinking, is it better to do less service and think of Krishna more, or do more service and think of Krishna less? So those are my two options, although that's not the actual philosophy. So I wrote Prabhupada that letter. What should I do? Because I told him how when I was traveling it was so much easier to think of Krishna. So then he replied, his first sentence was, the whole point of everything is to become absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. So when I heard Prabhupada say that, I felt guilty, I felt embarrassed, I felt this was impossible, to become absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, because I felt I was never thinking of Krishna. That's why I wrote Prabhupada, thinking of so many things other than Krishna. So he writes back, the whole point of everything is to become absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. So I was, immediately I was thinking, this is impossible, I'm already at a loss. So then Prabhupada said, the way you do this is that you think that you have no qualification for your service. So Prabhupada told me, in my situation, you should think that you have no qualification to be the temple president, and that you have to pray to Krishna to give you the qualification. So he said, you should think Krishna, you should pray, Krishna, please give me the qualification, because if you don't give me the qualification, then all the devotees in the temple will leave. So he said, in that way, always remain dependent on Krishna, and then you'll always be able to think of Krishna. So he didn't say, do less service, think of Krishna more. That was never Prabhupada's mood. But his mood was, you should be dependent. And then by being dependent, you'll think of Krishna. So I thought that was very instructive.
So one particular evening he called me. He said, come and give me massage. So I was massaging Srila Prabhupada. And now he said that it was around about 9:30, 9:45. I said, now you can go and take rest. It was in his quarter in upstairs, Vrindavan. And I was preparing my bed in front of Prabhupada's quarter upstairs. It was summertime. The mosquitoes in Vrindavan. So I was putting on my mosquito net. It took me about 15 to 20 minutes to prepare my bed. And it was about 10 o'clock. And what I found inside Prabhupada's room, there's a noise. I looked from the window. I said, Prabhupada is supposed to be taking rest now. I looked from the window. What I found, Prabhupada is sitting on desk and translating. And from 10 till morning, Prabhupada kept on translating. No rest practically. Then for some reason, Prabhupada called me in. I said, Prabhupada, this night you didn't take any rest. And you're not feeling well even. You should have taken some rest, Prabhupada. Prabhupada looked at me and he said that, Navi Yogendra, sometime this body will be sick, sometime it will be okay. But in any condition, you should keep on serving Krishna. That is to your eternal credit. That is only going to go with you, nothing else. See how much he is thinking of serving Krishna. How much is dedicated to his Lord Krishna. He is not feeling well, in advanced age. But he is not sleeping. What for he is doing? He is not doing this like many people work very hard to make money. He is doing for the welfare of everyone. He is doing for the benefit of everyone. For the benefit of mankind. So then he said that actually this body is useless. This body is useless. Now after the death, when animal die, his body is useful after death. His skin, his bone, his flesh, everything is useful. But human body is useless after death. So whatever we can do in the service of Krishna, that is to our credit. So while we are living, we should keep on serving Krishna. We should not give up serving Krishna. If someone is not serving Krishna, this is his misfortune. It's not good for him. So I felt so dedicated, not caring for his body, just thinking of others. It doesn't take him rest. So I was really moved. I was moved by his compassion for others.
Then the next day he came in, and it was the evening time, and he asked that the devotees, he started this 2/4 beat, this sound that we'd never heard before, and it's Srimad Bhagavad Gita class in the evening, and he starts with the kartals, with his eyes closed. Parama Karuna Pahundvijan Nitai Gaura Chandra. His eyes being closed. There was maybe only Dear Krishna and maybe one or two devotees out of all of us that even knew the song. All the rest of us were all dumbfounded, all waiting to have this concert from Srila Prabhupada, And Prabhupada kind of comes out of his samadhi, and he looks around and he goes, "What? You don't know this song? Tomorrow you will know this song." And he went right, put the cartels down, and got right to the class and went right on, So we're all feeling a little strange about that. And the next day, of course, Balavanta